There is a specific kind of fear that comes when you realize the road has disappeared. Not the road ahead of you, the road behind you as well. In every direction, white, moving white. Snow that the wind turns into something that has no shape and no direction, only force. You are in a truck, a fully loaded truck on a mountain pass in the Alps. The temperature outside is -17. The road was open when you started climbing 2 hours ago. It is not open anymore. Your phone shows no signal. Your radio reaches static. The last other vehicle you saw was 40 minutes ago. And your engine, the engine that runs your heating, that keeps the cab above freezing, that is your connection to everything that isn't the storm, is running low on fuel. I want to tell you about the night I spent on the Brenner Pass, not to frighten you, but because what happened that night and what I did to survive it is information that might matter to you someday. Nobody plans to get trapped in an Alpine blizzard. If they did, they would plan differently. What actually happens is a sequence of small decisions, each of which seems reasonable at the time, that together produce an unreasonable situation. It was February. I was carrying a load of industrial equipment from Munich to Verona. The Brenner Pass, the A22 through the Alps connecting Austria and Italy, is one of the most heavily trafficked Alpine routes in Europe. In summer, it is straightforward. In winter, it requires attention. In a 7 storm, it becomes something else entirely. The weather forecast that morning had shown possible snow above 1,000 meters. Possible. The pass sits at 1,374 meters at its highest point. I calculated that I would cross the summit in early afternoon, typically the safest window before the evening temperature drop. I was wrong about the timing. A delay at the loading facility in Munich, paperwork, a forklift problem, a signature that took 40 minutes to materialize, pushed my departure 2 hours behind schedule. 2 hours. That was the margin between crossing the pass in manageable conditions and arriving at the summit at the exact moment a weather system moved through faster than the forecast predicted. The snow started lightly at 900 meters. I told myself, it's fine. Trucks cross this pass in snow every day. I had winter tires. I had chains in the storage compartment if needed. At 1,100 meters, the snow was heavier. At 1,200 meters, the visibility dropped to perhaps 150 meters. I slowed down. The truck ahead of me slowed down. And then the truck ahead of me stopped, and we all stopped. Road closed. Emergency message on the variable signs. In German, which I could read, Straße gesperrt, Unwetter. Road closed, severe weather. The convoy of trucks behind me stretched back further than I could see in my mirrors. None of us were going anywhere. In the first hour, nobody is particularly worried. Road closures happen. They reopen. You wait, you drink your coffee, you call the dispatcher to report the delay and update the delivery ETA. This is normal. This is part of the job. Some drivers got out of their cabs, standing in the snow, smoking, talking in the way men talk when they are trying not to look concerned. There were perhaps 30 trucks visible from where I was parked. Polish, Romanian, German, Italian plates, a brief United Nations of the hard shoulder. An Austrian driver, 2 trucks ahead of me, came back and knocked on my window. He spoke German and a little English. He said, "They say 3 hours minimum, maybe more. Big storm coming from the west." 3 hours. I had about a quarter tank of fuel. Running the engine for heating at idle burns roughly 4 to 5 liters per hour. 3 hours, 15 liters. I had more than that. But 3 hours became 4, and 4 became 6, and the storm did not pass. It settled. By 8 p.m., it was dark, and the snow was so thick that the trucks 10 meters ahead of me were shapes, not vehicles. The temperature outside was -17. Inside the cab, with the engine running at idle, approximately +12. Cold enough to see your breath if you sat still, warm enough to survive. But the fuel gauge was moving, slowly, steadily moving. I made the calculation. I had perhaps 6 hours of engine running time left at the current consumption rate. If the road opened within that window, I was fine. If it didn't, I had a problem. I called the Austrian authorities' road information line. A recording. I called the Asfanog Traffic Information Service. Another recording. I tried the Italian side, the A22 emergency number. A human voice, finally, in Italian. I explained my situation in the broken Italian I had collected over years of driving this route. She said what I had feared. The pass would not reopen until morning at the earliest, possibly later. Morning. It was 8 p.m. That was a minimum of 10 hours away. I did not panic. Panic is a luxury you cannot afford in a situation like this, because panic consumes energy and produces nothing useful. Instead, I made a list. What I needed: warmth for as long as possible with as little fuel consumption as possible. What I had: a sleeping bag under the bunk. Always carry a sleeping bag, always. Plus 2 extra blankets, a thermal layer in my bag, gloves, a hat. Food for 2 days, 3 liters of water, a small gas stove, and 2 cartridges. What I did: I turned the engine to the minimum idle speed. I put on every layer I owned. I got into the sleeping bag with the blankets over it. I turned off every electrical system that wasn't essential. Lights, phone screen, everything. I kept 1 bar of phone battery for emergency calls only. And then I waited. The wind hit the cab in waves. You feel it physically. The truck moves. Not much, but enough to feel. A 40-ton vehicle moved by wind. At midnight, I turned the engine off entirely. The cab temperature was still bearable with the sleeping bag and layers. Fuel preservation now became priority over comfort. I calculated I had perhaps 4 hours before the temperature inside would drop to a point where I would need to restart. I set an alarm for 3 hours and tried to sleep. 3 a.m. in a truck on a mountain pass in a blizzard is one of the loneliest places I have ever been. The alarm went off. I checked the temperature, a small thermometer I keep clipped inside the cab. -2 inside. The sleeping bag had done its job, but only barely. I started the engine. The cab began to warm. I heated water on the gas stove, made instant coffee, held the cup with both hands. Outside, still white, still moving. The shapes of other trucks, still there, still waiting. A faint light from somewhere down the line, someone's cab light, proof that other people were awake, also waiting. I found myself thinking about things that seem out of place in a moment of physical difficulty. My daughter's drawing on the fridge at home, whether I had said something meaningful to anyone the last time I was home, whether the things I was driving towards, the delivery, the schedule, the invoice, the route, whether they justified this specific moment, this cold, this alone. It's strange what the mind does when the body is surviving. It audits. I did not reach any conclusions at 3 a.m. on the Brenner Pass, but I asked questions I had been avoiding for a long time. At 4:30 a.m., the radio came back to life. Static, then voices. The pass was being assessed. At 6:15 a.m., 9 hours after the road closed, the first snowplow came through, slowly, with its orange lights cutting through the gray dawn. At 7 a.m., we moved. I delivered the load in Verona at 2 p.m., 8 hours late. The client was unhappy. The dispatcher was unhappy. The paperwork was a headache. None of that mattered to me as much as it normally would have, because I had spent a night on a mountain in a blizzard, and I had come out of it fine. And the reason I came out of it fine was preparation. Not heroism, not luck, just the habit of carrying the things you need before you need them. Here is what that preparation looks like. These are not suggestions. These are the minimum standard for driving Alpine routes in winter. A sleeping bag rated to -20, not the cheap one, the real one. It weighs almost nothing, and it takes up almost no space. And it could save your life. Emergency rations for 48 hours, high-calorie, non-perishable, energy bars, nuts, tinned food. Not because you expect to be stranded for 48 hours, because you do not expect to be stranded at all, and that is exactly when it happens. A gas stove with at least 2 spare cartridges. Hot liquid when the temperature drops is not a luxury. It is a tool for maintaining core body temperature. A full charge on your phone before every mountain crossing, and a power bank. These cost almost nothing. The alternative costs everything. Know the Alpine emergency numbers before you need them. Austria, 120, roadside assistance, 140, mountain rescue. Italy, 1518, road assistance. Switzerland, 140. Save them in your phone. And the most important rule of all, if the weather looks wrong before the climb, don't climb. There is no delivery in the world worth what a mountain in a blizzard will cost you. When I came down from the Brenner that February morning and the mountain disappeared in my mirrors, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Grateful. Simply, uncomplicated grateful. For warmth, for movement, for the road being open again. The things we take for granted until the moment they are taken from us. If you drive Alpine routes, in winter, in any season, take this seriously. The mountains are not impressed by schedules. They do not care about delivery windows. They operate on their own terms. And the drivers who last longest are the ones who never forget that. Leave a comment if you've been caught in something like this. I want to hear it. Stay warm, stay prepared, and know when not to climb.